Hello, Zombies here. Welcome to your 3.0 enrichment course, I guess. I'm going to be talking about a bunch of 3.0 stuff. I'll be starting with assuming you're using my controller, and you'll see something similar to this. I'll explain how to add your own stuff to it, edit it, upload. It'll be nice. Starting off really basic, just so you can bring in your 2.0 stuff and put it right into 3.0. It's pretty simple. Then I'll be going over some more animator basic stuff, and then get into more like how I did things and how you can do your own stuff and some thoughts and ideas. I'll essentially be going over everything that I know so far. I'm not an expert at this, but hopefully you can help. So, assuming you just imported my junk, this is with the Plui dress. It might look a little similar. I'm going to be releasing a free version without the dress very soon. Be very little different. To get open this little window, which is where we're going to be hanging out, the animator, you want to go up to the window, and it's under animation and then animator. So that's that window right there. You're going to want that. My little project thing might look a little different, but it's the same. It's just a different layout. So to start out, let's say you have your own gestures that you want to put in, because the default slot on mine is empty. You just click the Zombies Good FX. And then it's 2 layers down right here is the default left and the default right. All you got to do, so let's say you want to put one on the fist, click this, which is a state, and then up here, these are animations. You just put your animation in. And then there's the right hand as well. All of these are just the default proxy stuff. If you want to change your finger movement, because let's say you don't have like index or something, that's in the gesture. It's the same. It's just down here in the gesture. The gesture is only bone movements. That's if you want to like flip someone off. That's about it. If you just want to edit stuff, I've got the music player. That's actually just up here on the body. I put it as a prefab underneath the chest. It's in here in the jukebox holder. You see song 1 through 8 have just the audio clips. You just put them in there. 9 and 10 I left empty, so it wouldn't put you to very poor by default. But if you want to use those, just copy an audio source and put it in. The logic in the controller is still there. I didn't delete that. Past that, one of the other things actually that's on the body is on the left shoulder. I put in the flashlight. I plan to put more stuff in there. The reason why it's in that like little container is easier toggling, but I want to be able to have it to switch hands and stuff, but currently it does not. So that's where that stuff is. Nothing else is really on the armature. For 3.0, just uploading, you want to get your avatar descriptor in, easy peas, and then you know it's the same as 2.0. You change all your stuff. You can change your eyes, other eye stuff, blend shapes for looking up and down. Here's the 3.0 stuff. You just want to have the FX in here, or the gesture and the gesture, FX and the FX. This is just default emotes. I have to have them in here because, yeah, different menu. And then the menu and the parameters. So let's start with some of the basics, I guess. This is exactly what you would see for if you were loading up 3.0 and you were trying to make your own controller stuff. So we'll start with that. Your entry is just wherever your layer starts on your animation controller, and it'll have a default thing that goes into a state. That's where you'll kind of sit, and it'll just play the animation based on what you want. So this is for gestures. So there's these little arrows which are transitions, and they can have conditions and different settings on how to transition. This one is saying your gesture left is equal to 0, and that means whenever you're not doing any gesture, it'll go to 0. Here's the transition on how to get there. And then this is whenever it's equal to 1 through 7, it'll transition to each one. Because it's coming from any state, that means that any single one of these can transition to the other, because since it's any state, it'll just always kick you out to whichever one you need to be in. This parameter is just one of the built-in ones. You can go and find that on the website. I'd recommend having this bookmarked because this stuff is it's all listed right here. It's not listed in the SDK really. You can see what I'm getting here is gesture left is the hand control. It's also got some stuff with the gesture left weight and gesture right weight, but that's a little more advanced. You don't really need to worry about that. But that's the analog trigger, which you can kind of see here is under the normalized time. They have it doing stuff. It's essentially just how it transitions a little bit. Well, not really, but it's how it's activated. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on in those. It's just whenever you press it, it goes. Let's say you're starting off super basic and you're making your own controller. How you would put that parameter in is you actually click from the layers tab to the parameters, and you'd want to put them in right here. You got to name it exactly the same. Put it as what it is. It's an integer. These are floats. If it has a decimal, it's a float. If it's a full, like a whole number, it's an integer. We're not using any of the other stuff like bools and things. It's just integers and floats for us. So, unless it's the grounded one. Grounded is a bool, I think. Maybe not. I don't know. No, yeah, it's a bool. It doesn't really matter. Those are just the built-in ones. This is also where you can put in all of your own parameters to do different stuff. It's arbitrary. You just name them what you need to name them, and you make them do their things. Where you actually set that up is the parameters. To make one of these, you just go to right-click, create, VRChat, avatars, and then the parameters. It starts out with just their basic ones, and then it's empty. You can have 16, which at first seems really limiting, but it's actually not, and I'm going to get to that shortly. So here's my parameters. Selector is an important one. It does pretty much everything. All the other ones are floats. There's not really a way to reuse floats, so your float kind of does what you tell it to. It's usually blending between two animations because it can get that really fine detail because it's a float. There's not really a way to like make them do two things, I guess. In an integer, you can make it do a lot of cool stuff. So I've just got some set up for the mood blend that you see on the main part, the body changer, breast slider, hue, the volume needs one as well, emission strength, and hue emission. This leaves 5 open. If I do future versions, I will probably use another parameter, but I will most likely adapt the VRC emote to be that one. So there will probably always be these 5 open for if you want to add anything. I'll probably add my own stuff too. So, but you know, it's pretty simple to leave a lot of them open, really, because that's like 5 more things you could do. So that's that. The menu that you need is the same as the parameters. You right click and make it. Put in the active avatar, and this is just kind of like where you start saying how to change parameters. A lot of these are sub-menus on mine, but let's say the mood blend is right here. That one, I just set it so it's my 2 parameters that I said. I label it, put in the little icons, and name it as 2-axis puppet. What this is saying is essentially whenever you go in this, it's changing these 2 parameters. So let's go and look at essentially what those parameters are doing. They're down here pretty far after all my gesture layers. It's down, actually no, it's like right at the beginning. I'm dumb. No, wait, no, it's not. Where did I put it? Could have sworn it was down here. It is down here. I have it under Mood Blender. What it does is it comes into an idle, which I'll explain why those are important on other ones. This one's not too important, but I still got it in there. And then I have a transition saying if the mood blend becomes less than or greater than on either axis, transition into this mood blend. The reason why I have that is to get away from this idle, which again, not the best one to show you, but then this is just a blend tree. You can see up here, if you double click, you go into it, I'll start showing you stuff. This is where you put in all your animations you want to blend to. I've just got the 4, and it's basically, it'll blend between them. You can put in as many as you want. You can do some really cool stuff with this, with just the 2 parameters. So those are super useful. But that's all that is. That's basic 3.0. You can essentially have one of those built in without even really having to do anything. So that's pretty cool. What should I start with next? I'll go ahead and put in, I'll show you how to do like a toggle. This will be the one that turns on my headphones, and it will make it so in this, I could in theory, well actually I'll do it for the dress one. Well, no, the dress one's confused. I'll do it for the headphones. It's basically saying I could have these on by default. This jukebox holder is doing other things, but if I had it on and I had these headphones on, I could toggle them on and off, and it wouldn't matter the way that I do it. It'll just be as it is for what you upload. So what you see is what you get, essentially. That's why this controller is so good from 2.0 to 3.0. It seems to make a lot of sense for that. You essentially don't need to come in here and mess with the controller. You just put in your stuff and upload. It's good to go. So the way that I have mine is I'm not using a toggle in the menu. I'm using a single button that controls the selector parameter that does a bunch of stuff. I have my index here, but essentially each one of these numbers is doing something. And let's find the headphones. Headphones are actually up here because they're one of these thingies. They're in the what I deem the closet, but kind of changed around. 21 is the headphones, so that's just the on-off. So what this one is doing is it's just it's a little bicycle toggler essentially. It just makes a wheel. So it starts out at empty. Nothing is happening here. You have to transition off of this for things to start happening. That's what makes it so whenever I have my headphones on or off by default, it just stays like that. So whenever I upload, it's because I'm in this empty state. So that means whenever I go into my menu and I click the headphones on or off or the music toggler, both do the same thing actually. It's saying selector is equal to 21, which it does because I'm clicking the button. It transitions. It's under these. It's essentially instant, but I didn't put it as instant. It's just a very quick, because, yeah, I don't know. Could be instant, doesn't really matter. So that means that now I'm at music on, which is just the jukebox enable. It turns on the animation. I don't actually need it to be right here, but it makes it so I just have it for reasons. It actually needs to be right here. What this is the reason why I have it like this is because if you use toggles in the menu, that makes it so whenever you click that, it has to be that number on your parameter. That makes it so you can't reuse parameters like I did where I have, like so much stuff. It would make it so it could only be 21, and as soon as it's not 21, it's going to be something else, which isn't true. You can actually make it lock into a state, but it messes with things. It makes the parameter not as flexible. You could do it though. But the little circle you see in the menu that like spins around isn't going to be very obvious what is actually currently selected. So that's why I end up using buttons and I use no toggles really. So it's saying whenever selector is equal to 21, it goes. Buttons activate for 0.2 seconds by default. If you can hold them for longer. So because you can hold them for longer, the way that I made this was essentially whenever the button is released, it continues on. So now we're sitting here with jukebox is enabled. Because I pressed the button once, went to here, and then I let go and it went to here. So that means that even if I were to hold it for a minute, it would just stay right here and it wouldn't continue on or like start flashing between states and stuff like that. So yeah, that means I'm sitting here with the jukebox enabled. Then if I press it again, it goes to off. And then it just this is it's just whenever it's off, it goes to here. This is a avatar parameter driver. I'll get more to those later, but this is essentially, this is driving something else. It is what makes this little toggle a little cooler, but, it just basically every time you press it, it just continues on. And then whenever you release, it goes to the next state where it's just has it disabled or enabled. So that's the way I built the togglers on my controller. I will say preemptively, I think there's some syncing issues that can happen, for people who join the world late. If I end up doing like a cool fix for those, I'll do them as a V2. Currently, I like this controller the way it is because of the flexibility it allows. So, the things might be different in the future, but I'm sticking with this. This is the way that I like. So you can do a simpler toggler by essentially just having any state transition to, let's say this one is on, and off. You can do it so it'll essentially be whenever selector is, this would just be a headphones parameter. You wouldn't really be able to use this for much else. Whenever it's equal to 21, it goes to on, and then whenever it's equal to, I don't know, whatever, 0 or a different one, you'd have to have two different buttons. It would just go to off. That's a lot simpler of a toggle. It's super easy to set up, but it makes it so you have to have there's things. There's a reason why you'd want this. I've got some in mind, but there's reasons why you wouldn't. It clutters your menu a little bit is the main reason. But yeah, that one would make it so it would actually sync kinda, because as soon as you have it off at 21, anyways. But that's a super simple toggle. That's essentially doing the exact same thing as this, but a little less fancy because it's not using buttons. What would be good to get into next? I'll just jump right into the gesture set swapping because that one's one of the cooler ones. So the way that I have mine set up, there's a million different ways you can do this. I think mine's the best because, well, I don't think it's the best. I think it could be better, but I think it's really, really good. because it separates all the gestures out into different layers. This is the mad set, this is the glad set, this is the sad set. You might notice they look pretty similar. It's very easy to edit them. It makes a lot of sense, I think, once you understand the first layer. It makes it so you can just go in and edit these. Super simple. The way that they change is these layers are off by default, and then the default is on. So the toggler, or like the picker, just all it does is turn layers on and off. But what this means is if you were to change the logic somewhat, you could blend these. You could have every single mood on or every single mood off or any combination of in between. If you have all of your moods as substates inside of a single layer state, it will make it so you can only be in one gesture set at a time. I've seen a lot of gesture set pickers do that, and that's actually how I had my V1 of this. We're on V1.03. Those 0.01 and 0.02 were actually pretty big changes. But it makes it so you can't blend gesture sets, which I ended up not really particularly using, but I used it a couple times, and that's its main limitation. It makes it a little harder to understand how to edit it too, but not really. It's still pretty simple. So anyways, what this one is doing is, like I said, you could set this logic up a lot of different ways, so might be prone to change in the future, but essentially I'm having it say, whenever the selector is in between the moods, which you, again, down here in the index, I have the moods near the end, it's saying whenever you pick any mood that's in between any of them, because all the moods are kind of in order, it transitions to my little scrubber layer. And this is an and. It's whenever it's greater than 229 and less than 243, it'll go. So it transitions to this scrubber layer, which what this is a lot of the animator layer controls for both the gesture and the FX layer. It's turning them all off, so that you essentially go back to your no gesture set. It just turns all of them off. What this is, I'll suppose I'll go over how to add these right now. You just add a behavior, and these are some of the stuff that they allow you to do. It's pretty cool. The layer control is what we're doing here. All we're doing is just setting the weights of all of them to 0. The blend duration being 0 just means that it's instant. And then it's on the gesture controller and the FX controller. So once that's done, we need a way to continue on to our gesture set, which all of these are just saying turn on the gesture set, weight of 1 to each whatever layer it is. That also means don't reorganize these if you're editing this, because if you reorganize them, it'll just turn on random layers. So yeah, we need a way so whenever you press the button, it sends you to where you need to go with a single button press. So, you pressed it once, it's now in the scrubber, scrubs them all, so they're all 0. Let's say you picked mad. I believe that's 231. I basically have it so it's instant to get to the scrubber. From any state, it's just bam, you're there. Everything is off. And then it's a 0.2 transition duration into mad. That means a single button press will never mess up. If you just press it and release, it will go into mad. It works pretty well, actually, just because the transition duration is the length of a default button press. That means if you hold it, though, it'll keep sending you to the scrubber, and it'll look a little weird. So, that's one of the downsides. This was actually a pretty big change right before I released this, so I still think it could be better, but because this one you have to set up a lot of transitions to do. And obviously a lot of the layer controls. So I think there's a more efficient way to do it. This one just has 2 because it has the reset. The reset sends you back to default. So it's essentially saying whenever you click it, because the state is like that for long enough, you just go to your gesture set, and then it turns on the weights that you need, and it turns off the ones that you don't. Pretty fun. Okay, so this, also in these is I have bases. That was one of the main things that I liked about my gesture set stuff is it has a base where essentially you're like, whenever you're in mad, you're a little mad. By default, it makes it very easy to make a bunch of sets. That's how I made so many of these. Like, I did this in like an hour. You make simple animations that are just a little bit of stuff. A couple of these are a little more, but like annoyed is just like the annoyed. It's just the annoyed bunch of, if this would go, geez, I'll use my mouse. That's all it is. So a lot of these animations are super duper simple. Like that one's just angry. This one's smirk and angry eyes. Some of them are a little more, but they're all pretty much just one thing. And because I have because this is also how I made them. I just made one that was all the angry stuff, and I would just copy it and delete the things that I didn't need. So it made it go really quick. Because it's like that, it makes it so because I have a mad base, all those gestures are pretty much mad. Like they're just mad because you're already mad. So it makes it more intuitive to use, I think. Once I get more feedback, it might change in the future, but I thought it was a pretty good idea. Because it makes it so you can make your own stuff pretty easy, which I left custom completely empty. Custom is whatever you want to put in. Default is also empty, but that's like your default. So that's whatever you load in and just start pressing gestures. So, yeah, that's kind of the idea behind having this have an animation as well as turning the layers on and off. So what that does is makes your face like that, but let's say you want to turn it off. I put in a thing for that too. This one actually could have used like a float, and you could have had like a blend between them out, but it got a little weird, so I just left it as is for now. What it is whenever you select, again in the selector, let me close that giant menu. 250 and 251 and 252 is just those three options. They just turn those to whatever you need it to be. And all it's doing is turning the first layer's weight to 1 to 0.5 to 0. I also didn't build the reset to affect this. So if you pick 0 and you click the reset button that's in the moods, it'll just leave it. I figured that was nice enough because if you pick one of these to be something different, I feel like you want it to stay there. So this one is just a simple toggle. All it is whenever you press the button, it goes to that. And then it just turns those to what they need to be. So it's pretty simple. But you may be asking, well, if the weight's 0, why does it still go in a way? If the weight's 0, this stuff shouldn't be affecting anything. The layer should essentially just be off. It is, kind of. The animations no longer play. They blend to either full, half, or 0, meaning the face essentially won't show up at 0, show up a little bit at 50, show up half at 50, and it'll show full at 100. But this layer is still affected by parameter changers. And because all you have to do is be in this state for all this stuff to go off, all this still works. Even at a weight of 0, all it's doing is making the animations not really show up, but it'll still change sets even if the layer is off. So that's neat. So yeah, that's all that one's doing is just a simple, yeah. The empty being the reason why I have all these empties is just so if you change something, it'll load in as what it is. Some of them that's like nigh impossible, but you could in theory make it so the empty has the weight of this as well. No, because you wouldn't even need this to do anything. You could just set the weight of this to be 0, and it would always load in without the default blend faces until you turn them on. So that's why I have these empties, is because it makes it so you can just make broad edits and not have to worry about things goofing each other, like whenever you load in. There's very little in this controller that actually like sets to a state. One of them is the actually, I don't know. I think I changed that. No, I don't know. We'll see. So that's the logic behind all of the gesture sets. Custom 1 and 2 are way down here near the bottom. Like I said, they're empty, so you can put in whatever you want. But let's say you're putting in a prop. If you're doing like a really intense gun animation, I'd recommend making a whole thing for it. Like make it real cool. Like do a bunch of like layer or like do its own layer with like all these transitions and stuff and animation states. But let's say you're not. Who cares? Let's say you just want it so whenever you do finger gun on your left hand, it pulls out the gun, and then whenever you do fist on the right hand, because then you can do like a trigger pull, it shoots. You go into your left hand in like custom 1, put it in the finger gun, bang, there's my gun out animation, right, fist, there's my shoot. But I have a prop layer set up, so you could make more sense to put it in there unless you're doing something pretty intense or just want that. The prop layer is actually another gesture set on top. It will go on top of any of these other gesture sets, but allow you to do even more. It's down here below all of them. It's off by default, but you could go and put it in there, and then your gun would appear over any mood whenever your prop layer is on. The prop layer logic is just a couple down. It's another one of those little bicycle boys, just empty, so you could turn them on. So they would always be playing if you wanted. It's just the layer weight. And then it's whenever you do 253, which is just the prop layer toggle. Turns them on, turns them off. That's it. This any state going to the layer off is the reset button. That's 240. It just makes it so whenever you click it, bang, it's off. Like it turns it off. It resets everything. Room scale mode is the one where you can't move. This one actually has the locomotion control. All it does is disable and enable it. And these things will stay enabled or disabled, same with layer weights, until they're changed again. So yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. And again, the thing. So yeah, that's a bunch of those togglers. Mirror mode, I have not implemented yet. I was going to make it so it turns off your locomotion. So whenever you move via your joystick, you just kind of float in place. I figured that'd be nice if you're just sitting in front of a mirror and like, you needed to do a minute adjustment. You won't just like do the walking jank. That looks terrible. So it's probably in the future. This is just the turn off and on. This is a simple toggle for the song selector. I'm thinking about adding in a shuffle mode. I think that would be really cool. So this might change and be a little bit more intense in the future, but all it is for right now is just whenever selector equals a thing, goes into the thing. Volume is just a blend of 0 to 1, so it's max to min. But this logic is actually saying whenever it's whenever this layer exists, which it does, and it's on, we'll go into this blend tree, and it'll be 0, because it's just 0 by default, and it won't be, like, meaning you'd have to turn on the volume every time you pick a song. The way I got around that is the parameter for music volume is just at 1. It just loads in with the volume at 1. So it looks a little weird in the menu because it doesn't update until you're in it, but it's not actually at minimum. You can do that. You can pick parameters and stuff. I would not suggest picking the selector to something because it will always try to make it that. So leave the selector at 0, but you could make it so like your emission strength, you could edit it here. You can also edit it in your shader, which I'd recommend, but you could edit it there if you want to. So that's most of those things. It's all pretty simple. I just made a lot of it. Here's the color picker for the dress. It's just, again, like a simple selector thing. This is actually just a toggle for on and off of the dress to the shirt, but because the dress and the shirt are the exact same object, it got a little weird, but it's essentially saying whenever you select 2 or 1, which 1 is dress, 2 is shirt, it sends you to the right state. So it gets a little weird because you can go from the dress, could go to an off state, or it could go to the shirt state. So it's just a lot of transitions all between. So that one's a little weird, but it's it's a little weird. The body type's 1, again, empty, so you can load in with skinny on your body, and you'll keep that. Same with the boobs. This is actually the main reason why I made this controller. The default Zoichi just has you go into this blend tree, and you would just load in with 0. You'd have to change the parameter to an arbitrary number to just, like, have boobs, which is awful. So because I have it going to empty, you can turn on the boobs via the blend shape on your body, on your avatar, and it'll load in with them. You need to change it on the dress too to the same number, but that's only for using the dress, of course. So that's the biggest reason why all these empty things exist and why this controller exists, really. This is a cool thing that I left off by default because I figured most people wouldn't use it. But it's a matte switcher for whenever your whenever breast is low, it stays to the male material, which is just the default male. And whenever the breasts go larger, it goes to female, which is just by default is the thing. It like adds some shading to the cleavage area. I left this off. The weight's 0 because most people are going to put in their own textures, but it's here if you want it. The logic is actually still there. So, yeah. Here's the body hue one. Again, just a float thing. Oh, here's actually how to edit those. I never really even said. Whenever you make a blend tree, you want to go up to the parameter, put in the parameter you want it to edit, and then you put in your you like add a motion and then do all your stuff. 1D is just like this. It just goes 0 to 1. The other ones are the joystick directions. They're 2D because they can go 2 directions. So, well, 2 dimensions, but yeah. The rest of these are just layers for the logic on how to change like all your leg types. They all have little empties because I load in with leg type 3 that that blend shape is picked on my body. So I load into essentially nothing until I change it. This is probably the biggest takeaway you can take if you're doing a 3.0 controller. You kind of need these. There's ways to get around it, but this is the simplest way to just put you in an empty default state. You can do lots of other stuff like turning layers on and off, but this is pretty simple. All these are just little toggles to go through all of that, all the different options. Super simple, honestly. Ooh, these are different. I don't even remember doing this. This is so whenever you select to remove left fang, it goes to here, and then I believe that is a reset, maybe? Let's look, because I don't even remember what I did. That is, 110 is a fang's default, so this is saying to bring your fang back. This one isn't like an either or, it's whenever it's changed to fang's default, it just does that. This actually isn't how I would have done it, so oops, but it works fine. I'm sure it won't be a problem. This one, it starts getting a little weirder with the mission stuff. The mission stuff will pretty much work if you're using Poiome. So if you're adapting this to a different avatar, it's pretty much just there. But obviously loads into empty. But I also have it saying hue emission is set to 0. This is me setting that parameter to 0 if you're in the empty default. And this is one of the few that I actually have you able to go back to that. The other one being the dress color lets you go back to your default. So that's why it makes it so you can do all that. Oh, crap. I forgot to show how to like edit that. I'll just do it at the end so it's not like in the middle of the video. Anyways, this is saying whenever hue emission goes greater than 0, goes to emission hue, which is the blend tree. And then you can do the different hue picker. That's just essentially saying whenever the float is changed in your menu using the radial puppet, goes right in here. And then this is the reset. It exits, which just kind of sends you back to the entry a little bit. So that's what that is. But there's a way back, and it's selector equals 156. 156 is the gamer RGB, which changes the hue. So because it's affecting the same thing, you need a way out of the hue. So that's what that is. You have the reset button, and you have the I just turn on gamer. So then it goes to there. The gamer one is just a little cycle, but it also has so that's just, it turns on the layer that you need, and so on and so forth, using one of my little button cycles. This is the reset selector, just bam, back to default, but it also has hue emission, becomes greater than 0, goes to gamer off, which if you remember, the hue is saying whenever it turns in gamer, does that. So they basically both turn each other off, so you don't have weird jank happening. Emission strength is it just goes into the blend tree and such. These are all pretty simple, but I have a reset button built into all of them because it's annoying to reset your entire avatar for just some stuff that ended up breaking or looks bad or something. So yeah, that's pretty much the entire controller. It's fairly basic. It just does a lot of stuff. It's pretty easy to actually get to this point. So if anyone needs help, I'm going to put my Discord in the description. Pretty much always available to help unless I'm like playing a game or something. And I mostly did this because I wanted people to go from 2.0 to 3.0, have some cool features, but have it stay out of your way. That's why I started with it. All you need to do to just upload this, if you want to put in your gestures, you just put them in right here. Or you can use the ones that are already set up, but I figure most people will have their own. And it'll just go. You can change your avatar as you're used to, and it won't change anything. Pretty cool. I put in a lot of work just to have something that doesn't change things really, but it's there. That you customize on the fly just because I found that fun, and yeah. The way to customize your dress, however, because I never went over that, is if you go to in all of the stuff, it's underneath the textures for the pluie. Or no, it's in the materials because it's a material. Duh. It'll be pluie dress fluff. You essentially just come in here, change the color to whatever you need, and that's like the main color of them. It's the pluie dress fluff and pluie top. You change the color of it, that'll change you, like, let's say we want a red dress. Let's just make it red. You got to change both to obviously visualize it. And then there's different matte cap stuff, which is controlling some of the accents. So if we change this one to, let's say green, make an awful looking dress, it changes that one. That's what's being used on matte cap 1. And I believe the raindrops are matte cap 2. They're just masked out. This one also has an emission 1 is going on the raindrops. You can mix and match all this around and stuff, but this is how you do it by default. So the emission is making the raindrops glow, which you could also do up here. It's just set like this by default. And you can change the color of that as well for the raindrops. The glitter is obviously down here, and that's how you change the color and stuff for the little line right there. So like we can make that yellow. The thing to note, however, is you can't have a multicolored dress. Like the top can't look like that and the bottom. Because of the way Unity's handling things, it's and because of the controller having options, this is one of the only like downsides is these just get it takes the values from the Pluie top, and that's what gets used. So if this one is still like this, where the main color is that like blue tealish, and the matte cap is white and white, and the emission is white, and even though it doesn't use the glitter, this is actually where you set the glitter settings for the color specifically. The other glitter settings do in the fluff. It overwrites those. It's just the way that Unity's working is you're essentially just editing the shader being used on the dress. If you were to use a different shader, you'd be able to split them apart or an edited Poyomi copy. But that's pretty advanced to do. So it's just something to keep in mind is even though I'm visualizing this on the bottom, you'd want to copy those values and put them in the top. Meaning the dress essentially always has to match is the thing. Matte cap 2 on this one's being used for the button, so it gets a little weird, but it's not that weird. You can make really good combos with it. Good Old What is the one who actually split the texture apart like this. I was going to do something way worse, so they made the dress look like really good and be really customizable. So like infinite thanks for them for that. They really did save it, like last second. But yeah, it makes it really really cool, and you have to go into Photoshop. So I like this. So I like this setup so much. It's pretty cool. I think that covers most of it, other than the gestures. This is where you have the ear poses and the tail poses. These are kind of crusty. These are just selectors with a lot of, selector is a bad word. These are just like little, like, you just pick how you want the tail to look with a lot of different conditions. It's pretty bad. I'll probably revise this if I go in and do it because this is awful to edit because there's just a bunch of numbers you have to memorize or look in the, like, keep toggling into the parameter selector index and junk. So there's better ways to do this, but it's essentially just saying, well, whenever you need it to be that, go to that. And it doesn't change unless you're in another one. Same with the ear poses. This layer also gets turned off with the mood blend as well. So your ears will change with the moods, but they will blend back to zeros. Like Mad like turns them sideways. This gets turned off with the gesture blend picker. The tail poses, there's a couple moods that put you in a different tail pose, but you can just switch back. It might be a little annoying. I don't know. I think it works fine. Like if you go scared, it'll tuck your tail between your legs. I think that works better. And then just here's where you put all this stuff. Oh, I didn't go over the photo shoot. This is actually empty because I ended up not doing stuff. If this would be like, if you turn on photo shoot, this isn't masked. So you could like move your eyes down here. So if you want to have like a photo shoot, like face pose or anything, the reason why you'd want masks is it just makes it a little more efficient. I just have a masking, so this only moves the right and the left hand bones, depending on the layer. It just makes it more efficient for Unity, because it doesn't have to look at anything else other than what's masked. So that's why you want to use masks for bone layers and stuff. I don't actually know if you should mask it for stuff like in the FX where it's not moving bones. You might. I'm not sure. I didn't mask them, but I might in the future, and it'll essentially just be masked to no bone transforms. But I believe that might get cut out just by VRC. Not really sure on how that one works. So that's about it, really. I plan on doing some cool updates to this controller, but I mostly made this for one, people wouldn't be as afraid to go from 2.0 to 3.0. Hopefully you learned something in this video, and a little less like a little less opposed and or excited. It's really fun and easy. It's essentially just whenever something is equal to something, go to where you want it to go. You can do lots of cool stuff with that. For example, I'll go over some like theory ones that I really haven't done yet, or actually I still have one that I didn't even show. For some cool ideas that I've either seen and or doing, because I didn't even talk about like locomotion layers and stuff. This is pretty much just for normal use case for most avatars. It's just, I mean, it's pretty simple, honestly. Even if you're doing it less focused on having every option available, let's say you just want to toggle something on and off pretty easily. You just say like, I put in my like toggle for like, I don't know, sweater, change it to an int, and whenever that's equal to 0, the sweater's off, and whenever it's equal to 1, the sweater's on. And then you just have it go from a layer that says any state, make a transition where the condition is 1 and it turns on, 0 when it's off. It's pretty simple. That fills up your parameters, but if you're not doing too much, that's fine. That's why I left 5 open, was if people wanted to edit stuff but they don't really get what's going on here because it's a lot, you can still just do that. So it's pretty simple to add stuff in. One thing to note is you don't want exit times if you're doing stuff like that. Exit time is if you want it to just move off of a state after a certain amount of time. That's what exit time is doing. So you usually want to turn that off. The only time I really use that currently is going from oh wait, no, actually I stopped using it. I don't think I use it on any, but it's useful for timers and stuff. You can make it so, actually, it's a good time to get into theory. Let's say you're doing a voice command, which you can do because you have access to the vising parameter. It's essentially whenever you talk, this cycles through 0 through 14, which you can see down here on the website. It's essentially saying whenever you do all these different vowels, it goes to these different states. So let's say you want to have something where you say lightning bolt and it shoots out a lightning bolt from your hand. You would just have it so it would just be a layer that is just like state to state to state to state, the condition being whenever you say the correct like vising number. It's a very basic way to do it. There's a lot of stuff you could do to make it work better, but you just have that, and then you would have it say after a short period of time, if you didn't say it correctly, it goes back to the beginning, and or if you say it wrong or something, but it depends on how intricate you want to make it. But it's essentially just a long chain of states going through all these different numbers and just exit times to go back to the beginning of that chain. So that's how you do literally voice commands. That's what makes 3.0 so cool. I don't know why people are scared. I didn't screw around with it for a month, but there's a lot of people who are like, nah, I don't want to do 3.0, but it's awesome. Like once you figure it out, it's toasty good. You can do so much so easily. One of the cooler things that I have just built into this is you can animate anything with your visemes now. I mean, like just voice commands, but that means you don't have to talk with your mouth anymore. You can talk with anything that's not a blend shape, which is so cool. One of the things that I just threw in last second was this viseme stuff, which just turns on the layer 31. That's up here, the viseme talker. This is what makes your like emission mask glow whenever you talk. Whenever this is on, it's saying, well, viseme 0, it's just mask 1, which these are all right here. It's just changing the emissive blink max. You can have it move strength too, but because I'm make strength animatable, I did it with this because it makes it brighter based on the number. And it's saying, well, whenever you're within these visemes, which is like K and P, I think, like it's stronger ones. Oh no, this was weaker, but like, some of the stronger ones are up here and kind of in the middle, and then it gets like weaker like vowels. I'm essentially saying, well, whenever it's within the vowel range, it goes to mask 3, which is fairly weak, but it's stronger than not talking. And then whenever you do the stronger vowels, it just becomes brighter. This is all that is, and it's like super basic. It looks very, very similar to a lot of the other things, like picking your legs. It's essentially the exact same thing. It just depends what you put in and where you put it. So yeah, I think that covers pretty much everything. You now know how to customize your dress if you bought that. Thank you for supporting me. If you didn't, thank you for checking out my video and or 3.0. I plan to make improvements, and I'll give away most of those for free. There's only a couple that I have in the works that I'm probably going to keep behind my Patreon content because they will be either A, fine-tuned to the avatar, or B, fine-tuned to the avatar. Doing a wing system, it's going to make it so like whenever you jump, like it goes through a whole bunch of different states of your wings that just automatically controls and looks nice. That's something that kind of needs to work with the avatar in a way. So I don't know if I'll be releasing that one for free or when it'll be done. I don't even know, but I already have most of the logic set up. But any improvements I do to this, I'm just give away just so people can use it. It's a really good base, in my opinion, a really good base 3.0 starting kit. And yeah, I never went over how to do menu stuff. So let's do that now. So let's say you want to trim down the gesture sets. You only want like 2 of them. Let's just keep default and let's keep mad. What you do is just delete the layers. Who cares? Get them out of here. We don't need them anymore. So you go through and, delete all these. That's the photo shoot stuff. You don't really need to delete that unless you're getting rid of the option. But we just got rid of all the gesture sets except like custom. So get them out of here. No more. So now in my menu, this is, you spawn these in the same way with like the parameters. You just create VR chat, the avatar's menu. By default, they're just empty. But so that might be a little easier to comprehend, but too late. And this thing that keeps popping, this is the default emotes. This comes with SDK. This isn't anything crazy. It's just saying, well, it's a little crazy. I mean, look at it, but it's essentially just saying go into emotes. That's in the SDK. So, this is like as crazy as it can get. So, mine's pretty basic. I hope people add in stuff. So it'll be fun. So that's essentially saying our moods. So this is the base menu. I just have it's mostly sub menus that just bring you into different places. But this is the mood one that lets you pick all the moods. So because we got rid of the mad, or we only kept mad in default, we'll keep those. But this is essentially just saying, because my selector is 232, kicks us into the correct state. That's again, arbitrary number. I just made them up. You can put them down here. I believe these only go to 255, which is why I need to keep another parameter. So if you have another parameter doing conditions like that, this multiplies. You can have significantly more than 255 options off of a single parameter. You multiply 255 by 255, which is like 60,000 something. If that's not enough, put in another parameter, and it becomes like millions. So you can do a fair bit of options in your menus. There's also cool ways that I'll probably do in future ones that you can, like if you get stuck in like a submenu hell, you can make it so you have like a get out button. Like let's say you want to change your tail and that's 10 submenus deep. You don't have to be stuck there just to change your tail. You go through all your submenu hell, you pick the tail, and it would just kick you straight back to the menu. You can actually do stuff like that. You put in the parameter being like essentially like a kill switch parameter, and whenever you go into the menu, it would set that to like 1, and it's whenever you pick that option of the tail, it would change that parameter to like 0, anything else. And because the menu is like, well, it's no longer 1, it just closes all the menus. So that you can, yeah, I made this one pretty not menu heavy because I wanted it to be simple to use and understand. But you could make it like crazy. You could have menus that do menus and menu and have it so you can still get back to the base. That's how you would do that. You'd have like parameter kill switch is 1. And whenever you change kill switch later on in your state machine, bam, closes the menu. Anyways, that's a big concept. I'm just going over menus. This is where I start jumping around because I didn't really plan this video, but let's go into the moods again. So it's down here. My arbitrary number that I picked to turn on sad is there, but let's say I just got rid of all of these. All you just do is delete them, and now they're no longer there. Mood page 2, not even using it anymore. Bang, it's all gone. Keeping my options because, but let's say I'm like, ooh, I actually wanted glad back. You can just add in the control, name it glad, put in a little smiley face. I use buttons. I'll go over, probably should have done this at the beginning, but most of these are just buttons, just puts, like I said, you can find out what they do like right here, but Button will just make it be that value for at least 2.2 seconds. Toggle sets it to it and doesn't turn it off until it toggles off. Submenu is a submenu. 2-axis is like the blending stuff where you open up that and it, yeah, it's like what I use for the mood. It's what everyone uses for like the mood thing. But 4-axis puppet, it's like that, but I'm dumb. I can't think of a reason to use it. I'm glad it's there. No idea. Like, I'm sure there's a reason that's really cool, but I don't know. It's pretty intense. Radial puppet is just the 0 to 1 float like changer. So you would set it to button. The parameter, well, we're using selector. Glad was 232, and now that turns on the glad thing. Again, you define that menu on your avatar. So you just have it down here in the menu and then the parameters, and that's what makes it work. If you have it like all messed up, it'll usually yell at you, but if you're having a problem, it's probably there or in your actual controller itself. You need to put in all the parameters that you use. Other than that, that's basics, intermediate, maybe a little bit of advanced, not really, of 3.0 stuff, and how to edit all my junk. Pretty simple. Again, if you want some more in-depth help, hop in my Discord and or just DM me. I'm usually free. I prefer if you did it in the Discord because then if someone else has the question, they can see it there as well. So, yeah. I think that covers about everything. If you want to put in music, I would suggest compressing it as much as possible. I probably haven't even done it as much as possible here, but it will just make your avatar take so long to load. So you wanna do that. And a lot of these animations are pretty reusable. So I mean, feel free to use them, redo them, do whatever. There's a lot of them. A lot of them are super basic. Most are just turning things on and off. These are probably one of the bigger ones because they actually rotate the ears to specific values. Do whatever you want. If you use this controller or work off of it and you're appreciative, please leave credit. I would love it. If you want to see more, support me on Patreon is the best place. If you don't want to leave credit for the controller, that's fine. As long as people use it, I'm happy with that. And yeah, I think that's about all. So I don't know how many videos I'll be making in the future, but if I make more, be sure to keep a lookout. So like and subscribe, smash that bell, and support me. Bye.